I just have the copies. Do you have the?
Yes, I had the bigger plan.
Okay. So I just, do you just want to?
Yeah, you can hand it, well, you have to talk up there, but if you can just,
I don't know how to do this.
You're on camera.
yeah, you state your name, address.
Eileen Lannon, Donald Road, 10 Donald Road. Tyler French, 12 Donald Road. Neighbors right next to each other. We initiated a survey of our property to look at doing an addition. Found that their shed was encroaching on our land, so we just, instead of moving anything, said, well, let's just move the line, which helps with our potential addition plans and allows them not to have to make major movements.
Right.
And plus, the line is awkwardly angled anyway.
So it basically just straightens it out.
It just straightens it out.
Yeah.
It was a strange lot, yeah.
It's right here, Ed.
8.5C.
Right here.
So this is the new
This
line.
is the line, this is the was line, this is gonna be the new line.
So are you taking ownership of the shed?
Nope, he's
As long as
keeping
she
his
takes
shed.
everything in there.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody see any issues, any comments?
Nope. Nope.
No reason not to.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. Okay. I make a motion to approve the A&R request for 10 and 12 Donald Road.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
easy.
Yeah, we have to sign this.
We need to sign a paper copy.
Does it matter what pen I use? It's not black.
We need to sign the paper one over there too.
Days are
Yeah.
Okay.
Big.
Hang on, Peter, just a second.
Yeah, that's one bid here.
The other's a paper, right?
Just need one of these.
God, let's get this thing so I can. Okay.
What's today?
I don't think Ed's gonna use it. He's gonna use his stamp every night.
29?
Yeah, do you want to sign this stuff?
120.
Sign that.
Yep.
You did that already.
Oh, yeah, excuse me.
Can you bring that over?
Okay.
I don't know, we got 4 on there.
Yeah,
Do they have to be all the same
yours?
ones?
I think you need one more on that, right? Or not?
Need any more on any of them?
You want to do this? You want to sign that real quick? You want to sign that one?
Great.
See, I don't think they need to.
Yes, Peter. Oh, I was,
It's
I
got
don't know,
enough.
like,
Yeah.
I've lost the.
It's got
Okay.
5.
Yeah.
Where's the Mylar?
Thank you very much.
Mylar one, I think he gave it to them already.
I don't know where it went.
Thank you.
So the public hearing for mobility, they've asked for a continuance till, is it a month from now roughly, end of February?
Right.
So we just need to vote for a continuance of that.
I make a motion that we continue mobility's public hearing until the end of February.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, next up is public hearing for definitive subdivision for 46 and 48 Meyer Road. Patrick, can you just kind of give us a quick rundown of where we are, so everyone here knows and on TV knows?
Sure. Just very quickly, this property came to us initially as an A&R request. There was a request to, I believe, create 2 lots. The planning board, with the recommendation of town council, chose to deny that request based on the fact that at that time we did not have record of it having been reflective of a previously approved subdivision plan. So based on that, the board denied it. The applicant then considered what to do. They then, I believe, appealed that denial to land court. There's been a fair amount of work, I believe, by their engineer, their counsel as well, to try to prepare plans as part of a definitive subdivision plan that have come back to the board. That was also, as I understand it, a recommendation that came from the land court judge. So that's what we have with the planning board tonight. You know, I haven't been, nor has the board been part of the land court process. However, we have had a couple of executive sessions with Chris and Ivrea, who are both here from Mieres Harrington. So the application, again, is for a definitive subdivision. We have recommendation letters coming from Chief of the Fire Department, Ray Burnett. We have recommendations coming from Tim Olson, the DPW director, as well. You have those in your packages. I had gotten a letter from Chief Burnett earlier today that I sent out, and I've made copies of those, I believe, somewhere here, and I'll see if I can get those out to the board members.
Patrick, a question. Is the full set of subdivision plans?
Yes, sir, it
Still
is.
trying to say it's really a subdivision that was other, because, you know, if it's the road is being widened, if the turnaround is a cul-de-sac rather than the hammerhead, then we can disregard the other plans. But I don't think it's being done that way.
You mean disregard the other plans?
Yeah,
Well, the comments of the members, like our fire chief and so forth, they're against it.
Well, let's hold on. We're not into it yet.
Yeah.
So
Way ahead.
I do need to read the notice, or one of us does, right?
Yeah, you do need to read the notice.
You want to read that, Rick? Or?
My stack.
Sure.
Here's the-
Yeah, that's it.
Public hearing definitive subdivision application by Nir Shamsuddin in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 41 and Section 4B of the Town of Hamilton Subdivision Rules and Regulations. The Town of Hamilton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, January 29th, 2019, at the Hamilton Town Hall, 577 Bay Road, Memorial Room, to review a definitive sub-plan submitted by Griffin Engineering Group, LLC, on behalf of subdividers Nazir and Patricia Shamsuddin. The public hearing will commence at 7 p.m. The project consists of the subdivision and reformation of parcels of land located at 46 and 48 Meyer Road, also identified as tax map 30, lots 11 and 12. The zoning for the subject property is RA. The application proposes to create 2 new lots and make various subdivision improvements. All wishing to be heard should attend.
Thank you. Okay, we have someone representing the applicant?
Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for letting me address you tonight. I'm Peter Nectum. I'm from McLean, Holloway, Doherty, and Sheehan in Peabody. I'm here on behalf of Nazir and Patricia Shamsuddin. My clients, as you know, are seeking to subdivide their 2 parcels of land at 46 and 48 Meyer Road so as to create 3 buildable lots, with 1 lot having frontage on Meyer Road, 2 lots having frontage on the 50-foot wide private way. I believe it's known as Meyer Lane. As the board is aware, the Shamsuddins previously presented an application for approval of an A&R plan, which this board denied back in July of 2017. My firm became involved for purposes of appealing that decision. Appeal is currently pending in the land court. As part of discussions with town council regarding resolving that matter, we've discussed the submission of an application for approval of a definitive subdivision plan with requests for certain waivers of your regulations. That's what brings us here tonight. I'm going to leave it to Mr. Shamsuddin's engineer, Bob Griffin, who I have with me tonight, to get into the specific details of what the Shamsuddins are proposing to do in terms of subdividing their land and improving the 50-foot wide private way on which 2 of the lots are going to have frontage, as well as a number of the waivers from your subdivision regs that we're seeking. Mr. Griffin's filed a statement summarizing that information, which I believe you have or should have in your packets. I'll suggest to you that what the Shamsuddins are proposing here is improving greatly upon the current condition of Meyer Lane, which already serves and has served since the 1950s 2 houses farther removed from Meyer Lane Meyer Road, than the Shamsuddins' land. Some of the highlights of the Shamsuddins' proposal are as follows. Meyer Lane will be widened to 20 feet and repaved with berms for a length of 415 feet. I'll note that its current width varies between 12 to 15 feet. Meyer Road, the public way it provides access to, is only 16 feet wide. We're proposing to extend the water main for a distance of 340 feet down Meyer Lane and install a fire hydrant at the end of the new water main. We're proposing to install a drainage system for the private way, a new drainage system, and new utility services to the 2 proposed residences. We've also proposed a National Fire Protection Association compliant hammerhead turn to be constructed on the Shamsuddins' land to provide access for emergency vehicles. I understand the fire chief has some concerns regarding what has been proposed for the hammerhead turnaround and the dimensions of the proposed improved Meyer Lane. We were only made aware of those concerns late last week, but Mr. Griffin, the Shamsuddins' engineer, is prepared to address those tonight. I also understand that there was a question raised as to whether the Shamsuddins have the right to develop a portion of the 50-foot private way that they do not own in fee, but have an easement over. I'll refer to the memorandum that I submitted last week, which I believe you have in your file. The Shamsuddins, like all of the other abutters to the 50-foot wide private way, they have a right-of-way over the entire width of that way. They own the fee up to the midpoint of the private way on the respective sides and have an easement over the other half. Those rights of way were established in the 1950s by the Trembleys, the common grantor of all of the land abutting the 50-foot wide private way. Those rights of way stem from the same subdivision plan showing that private way, and the same deed from the Trembleys conveying and reserving those rights of way over it, both of which appear in the title to each of the 4 lots abutting the private way. There exists a large body of case law that says that the owner of an easement consisting of a right-of-way has the right to make repairs and improvements necessary for the enjoyment of that way, which is exactly what the Shamsuddins are proposing to do here. I've cited a number of those cases in my memorandum. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Griffin to explain a little more detail of what the Shamsuddins are proposing to do in terms of subdividing their land, the proposed improvements to the 50-foot wide private way, and the waivers that we're requesting from you. Thank you.
What's the name of the road you're on?
Where's the best place to put this?
Meyer Lane?
Right there.
Could I stop for a second?
Yeah.
You called that Meyer Lane. What road are you on, Ed?
It's a different road, we know it's.
Yeah, I don't,
Well,
I've seen it, I've seen the private way called Meyer Lane. I'm not sure if it's actually called Meyer.
Absolutely not called Meyer Lane.
Meyer Lane is a different road within the neighborhood.
Well, I'm referring to the 50-foot private way.
Yeah, I understand that, but I just want to clear up that confusion because that could be a real problem later on.
Meyer Lane, I live on it, I've lived on it for 57 years.
If I'm mistaken,
It's
I'm
there.
mistaken, I apologize. I am referring to the 50-foot
The
private
local
way.
knowledge of the subject that you're discussing is usually referred to in the neighborhood as Meyer Extension.
Extension, okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
so right here?
Yeah, that's fine.
Should be seen by the public as well. So the first graphic here shows our locus, and the 50-foot wide private way extends here from Meyer Road. It goes back, 400 feet across the Shamsuddin land. The Shamsuddin land is 48 Meyer Road and 46 Meyer Road. This land goes all the way back to the MBTA property here. And it's characterized by a steep drop-off as you get to about here. It appears that this portion of the land at one time was mined for gravel, probably associated with the MBTA railroad tracks. So we also show on this plan the dotted lines here, which are the A&R lines. And so there has been no change to the A&R lines since that plan was filed originally. So the definitive subdivision plan uses those same lot boundaries. And you can see on the property here, we've got an existing house. There's a barn associated with the house here, and the access to the barn is off of the unnamed, or the Meyer Extension 50-foot wide private way that you see here. There's two houses at the end, as Peter mentioned, the McGuire and the McKechnie's houses. You can see the McKechnie house and the pool and the tennis court back here, just beyond the Shamsuddin property. And actually, the Shamsuddin property comes behind their developed area as well. This plan shows a little bit better the existing alignment of the private way. You can see it's paved. It's as Peter mentioned, it's about 12 to 15 feet wide. It's 14 feet at this particular spot, and it extends back about 500 feet to where it splits to the two driveways serving the McKechnie and the McGuire houses here. This is about 415 feet from here to here. The blue line represents the fee. So there's the Shamsuddin property that they own, and the red line here, the dotted line, is the way, the 50-foot wide way. And you can see that the existing pavement does not exactly follow the center line of the way. It's a little bit offset. There's a sort of a steep embankment here on this McCarthy property here. And so one of the things I'll talk about is how we're basically trying to save that embankment. And so one of the ways that we've requested is to widen this road in the direction of the Shamsuddin property, not in the direction of the McCarthy property here. There's overhead wires on the existing way that bring power back to the McKechnie and the McGuire houses there. I believe both of those houses are also served by public water, although there's not a very large line going down Meyer Extension, as I understand. So here's the proposed layout of the definitive subdivision plan. So you can see that the proposed roadway is significantly wider than the existing roadway. I'm sorry, can you see that, Patrick?
Yes.
No, we can't. So if you could push that dais out of the way, I think it's better.
Thank you.
Although, can we get him a microphone or at least somewhat close by?
The proposed improvements that the Shamsuddins are proposing here is first to widen the entrance here at Meyer Road.
and improve the entrance by placing granite curbs along these radius here. So the radius here and here will have granite curbings, and we have a wide opening here. So the paved section of the roadway from here back will be 20 feet wide, again, as compared to the 12 to 15 feet wide of the existing pavement. Once we get past the curb here with our granite curbing, we're going to put bituminous curbing along both sides of the roadway, and we're also going to, and that's to handle stormwater that lands on the roadway. We're going to put a proper crown on the roadway so that it'll shed water to each side, and then it'll carry the water from about here. It'll flow back towards Meyer Road, which it does today, but from here it'll run back to a catch basin that we're going to install here and here, one on each side of the road. It'll then be combined and conveyed in a new drainage easement to this point here, where it will flow overland, eventually making its way down to the wetlands that exist along the railroad tracks there. The proposed drainage easement is about 40 feet wide and about 210 feet wide, long approximately. You can see the proposed new houses here, one on lot 2, one on lot 3, and potentially some sort of renovation of the house on lot 1, potentially tearing it down and replacing it as well. I would just point out that the on-lot improvements are conceptual. We're not really, we haven't engaged architects and landscape designers and things like that yet, but I wanted to show you approximately where the buildable areas were and approximately where the houses would be located. And that's really why we showed those on there. We're not asking for approval of the houses or the driveways as part of this particular application. Since we filed the application in December, we've also had the opportunity to go out with the Board of Health and do perk testing on all 3 lots. We found suitable soils for septic systems on all 3 lots. In the case of lot 1, there's an existing septic system. It sort of gets straddled by this new lot line, so we're going to move that field over into this particular area here, so it's off of the lot line. The hydrant that you can see is shown right here, so it's about 340 feet, so we're going to tap into the existing water main on Meyer Road, run a line back to here with a hydrant and the appropriate valves. We'll also provide water to lots 2 and 3 off of the new water main, and we'll probably want to transfer the McKechnie and McGuire houses off of their existing copper water service in Meyer Road onto the new main. They would presumably have better pressure as a result of this. I also think that the hydrant improves fire protection in the neighborhood generally, not just serving, of course, lots 1, 2, and 3. But it would be an improvement for everyone. One of the waivers that I mentioned before was that the proposed improvements are not on the center line of the way. You can see the blue line indicates the center line of the way, and the road is primarily closer to the Shamsuddin side as it runs along here. And then it comes back and follows the existing alignment, and it's pretty much in the center by the time you get to the to lot 3. The turnaround area that we've identified, it's a little light here, but this blue line indicates the National Fire Protection Association compliant hammerhead. It has the dimensions are basically a little over 70 feet from here out to the edge of the pavement here. So in the event that there was a fire, the fire truck could easily pull in, turn around, come back out. Now, we have received a correspondence today from Chief Burnett regarding the alignment of the hammerhead. And one of the things that came to mind was possibly separating the driveway from the hammerhead location here. We can push the hammerhead a little closer to this side, and we can flip the driveway on this side of the house. So I think that we can separate the hammerhead from the driveway pretty easily and address one of his concerns anyways. In regards to the width of the roadway, it is a 20-foot wide roadway with curbs on both sides. There's a shoulder on the western side. There is not a shoulder on the eastern side, again, because we're trying to save this embankment here that goes up to the McCarthy property here. As far as the waivers on our subdivision application, first, the width of the road, the standard subdivision rules and regulations requires a 32-foot wide road. We're proposing, again, a 20-foot wide roadway. We have a waiver request associated with the hammerhead. instead of a cul-de-sac at the, along the right-of-way. And you can see, a cul-de-sac is about 120 feet diameter for the property line and about 95 or 100 feet for the pavement area. So we have a 50-foot wide area to work with here. We're trying to work within the layout of Meyer Road as was established as best as we can here. Overhead wires, we have overhead wires on the street right now. I think the subdivision regulations look for subsurface utilities, but I think we can tap off of the existing overhead wires and not change the characteristics of the road at all. No sidewalks. We're not proposing sidewalks along the way. There's only, again, 4 or 5 houses off of the way, and there's no sidewalks on Meyer Road to connect to in the first place. There's a waiver request regarding the north arrow. The north arrow in the subdivision regulations is required to be aligned with true north. We've aligned it with the plans of record on file at the Registry of Deeds, which is about 14 degrees apart. The subdivision regulations require a 4-inch asphalt base course beneath the pavement. What we have here is we're proposing 4 inches of bituminous concrete, a 2.5-inch binder course, and an 1.5-inch finish course, which is pretty conventional for a road construction and suitable for the amount of traffic that this will receive. Granite curbs are required by the subdivision rules and regulations. We're proposing granite curbs at the radiuses out here only, and asphalt curbs elsewhere. Again, we're not looking for a shoulder on the east side of the roadway, only on the west side. And no street trees. There's really ample trees along the way. I don't think there's a need to add any trees as a result of the proposed construction. So I think that summarizes our proposed waivers and our proposed improvements. I'd be happy to address any questions at this time.
Yeah, I have a question. Given the fire chief's lack of support for that hammerhead and his desire for a cul-de-sac, where would you put that?
So what I'm going to show you is, let's see. From a conceptual point of view, I had the opportunity to draw up what would happen if we separated the driveway, as I mentioned a minute ago. And I think it actually works pretty well. So what I've done is I've highlighted here in yellow the NFPA dimensioned hammerhead. Actually, what we're proposing to pave is a little bit bigger than that, as you can see. And then the driveway for the house coming on the, about I'm going to guess that's about 100, well, say 60 or 70 feet further away from this particular area. So we would leave this area paved, keep it available for the turnaround. We could even post a no parking sign in there or something like that. But I think that would be a very easy in, turn around, and come back out. Now, if we tried to put in a full cul-de-sac here, what it would do to us, we would, we would create a 100-foot approximately diameter circle here. We would push the house a little further back. We'd push the drain a little bit further back. And we would basically create, I think, more of an impact on the neighborhood by that cul-de-sac construction than we would with the hammerhead. And I really think it's reasonable to turn a fire truck around, or a large delivery truck for that matter, in this type of a hammerhead. I recognize the fire chief would prefer a cul-de-sac, but I think this is a significant improvement on the current situation out here. We have a road that's really too narrow. It's going to get paved by Mr. Shamsuddin. It's going to get widened. We're going to add a hydrant. So we're going to really make significant public safety improvements. I don't think that the cul-de-sac is critical to the improvements in the neighborhood, and certainly not critical to putting in 2 single-family houses.
What's the dimensions of the hammer portion?
Okay, so what the NFPA requires is a distance of 70 feet from the end here to the opposite side of the asphalt. What we're proposing, I think, is around 75, so it's a little bit bigger than that. The NFPA requires a radius of 28 feet here and here. What we're proposing is 30 feet, so it's a little bit more generous radius. And it has adequate length here, which I think has to be a total of 120, but you can see there's much more than 120 feet of length in that area as well.
And how wide is it?
So we have a 20-foot wide road, which I think matches up with the NFPA guidelines.
Oh, I mean, so the hammer part would be 20 feet also?
Well, it's actually, I think we drew it at 25, but
okay.
It's a little bit wider.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
I'd just like to hear from the fire chief.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Ray, do you have some comments?
So,
Actually, can you just come up and talk into the microphone, please?
So we have a similar situation on Alexander Way with a hammerhead, with a driveway in conjunction with the property, as they showed previously on the other plan. And with these improvements, I'm more acceptable to what I'm seeing. I think my original thoughts when I was asked by the board was I was pushing towards 20-plus feet, like 24 feet. Fire trucks are coming to an excess of 10 feet wide with the mirrors added to that. So you're talking if you had to pass another fire vehicle on that same road, 24 would be very comfortable. And I think I was talking in the last, in the first email I sent to the board was, you know, the type of winter conditions that we end up having and the lack of snowplow operator doing their proper job has made it difficult over the years to make the swings and whatnot. So I think the added space would alleviate some of those problems. First and foremost, I wish Griffin had supplied the fire department with a set of plans right off the bat as the fire code Massachusetts CMR 1 state. But I think if you would drop off, you know, these alternate plans, I could take a look at it and with adequate time review them. And you know, as AHJ, I have authority having jurisdiction. Take a look at them and really assess how they're going to affect fire protection. I really need to do that, and to come here and just see it for the first hand, you know, it looks better, but you know, I think there's some more improvements that can be done. I'm not against what they're talking here, but I think that you know, it's progress and work in progress. Okay, does that make sense? I mean, that's my feelings. Having the driveway separated, it's going to alleviate a lot of those problems I talked about Alexander Way. I'm really, I think we really, in the future, need to have a bylaw in town where any more subdivisions are done, we need to have a cul-de-sac. Backing fire apparatus up ends up being dangerous with people out of the truck. Okay. I think if we end up doing what he's proposing here, I think the signage with penalty and fines for neighbors parking in those in that spot, because the fire access road is only meant just as that, the fire access road. It's not meant for, you know, we're having a party and additional parking spaces. It's not meant for that.
Well, no, I mean, your comment about using the driveway as the hammerhead made a lot of sense to me, because, yeah, I mean, you could have 4 cars there and you couldn't back up, so.
We go to Alexander Way quite a bit, and we end up backing all the way out the street, out of the street. And there are a few other issues that have developed over the years that haven't been addressed from probably since it was approved back in the day.
So are you concerned about the 20-foot limit to the?
I was just saying, I would love to see it increased. The 20 feet that he's talking about in the code it states the minimum right in there. And when you guys read the packet that I put together over the weekend, I spent some time, a lot of my own time, preparing this packet and finished it up on Monday. You'll see all those concerns. Like I said, the 20 feet is the minimum. I'd like to see him soften up some of the outlets out of the driveways to make the turn for fire apparatus, especially a ladder truck. It's quite large. Actually, the code does state he's supposed to do a computer simulated analysis of the road and whether our fire apparatus, not just a fire apparatus, the ones that we have will actually work in this situation without, it's done now and there's nothing we can do about it. You can actually see, you know, the computer generated simulation, whether it will work or not. So.
Yeah, the road width, as you're aware, is always a balance for us and for, you know, the community, and that, you know, 32 feet in our in our bylaws is ridiculous for a road in this town for the most part, unless it's 1A, which isn't even that wide, or other major roads. And then when you get down to what's really a glorified driveway that happens to serve 4 houses, you know, to have a 24-foot wide road off of a road that's 16 that's serving 50 houses or whatever, to 40 houses, you know, it's a little odd, right?
Yeah, I know.
But I get where you're coming from.
Well, when you're sitting behind the seat of a fire apparatus and you've had extreme amount of snow like we had in 15, and the plows didn't do their job, and you're trying to get to a house to put a house fire out, as they just had in Manchester by the sea, and you're standing there watching your house burn up, you would hope that the due diligence, you would put what you need there.
That road is awful.
So,
Can I just say something specifically?
Are you all set, Ray, or
Yeah, sorry.
you done?
are you all set with,
Yeah,
my comments.
unless there's questions for you.
Yeah, so Brett McKechnie, 52 Mile Road. So my question is, isn't that on someone's private property? And what's to stop them from putting their cars there?
Well,
Who's going to enforce their private
Excuse me,
property?
can you tell me what
Yeah,
you're-
sure. On the turnaround right here, whatever this thing is. That's this lot's property.
Well,
That would be private property. Who's going to enforce that no one can park their car there?
Police,
On private property?
the police,
On private property.
absolutely, because that's the way it's set up.
they're giving an easement, correct?
Well, that's right, I mean, but.
So that's my question.
I
sorry.
know, I understand.
It seems to me that there are many roads in Hamilton that are privately owned. Not all roads are publicly owned, and we have no parking signs on private roads all the time. So the fact that the road happens to be privately owned, to me, doesn't stop the enforcement of traffic rules on that particular road.
Chris?
And while I'm up, I do want to apologize to the chief. I thought that when we filed the plans with the planning department, they automatically went to you. So we weren't trying to hold anything back. We did do the computer simulations on the turning. I'm happy to share all that information with you. And I think after tonight's meeting, you and I can hopefully get together for a short while, and I'll show you all this information.
Yeah. I mean, I've had other developers come in, and they seem to, it's not their first rodeo, they seem to know what's going on. They come to the fire station, they present them to me. We go over them, do a plan review, and I can ask what actually is happening, let them know my concerns, and then trying to alleviate some of these situations that occur right off the bat, instead of waiting until it festers and ends up in a situation that we're in here today.
Okay. Great. Chris, did you have a comment?
Only other thing I'd add is that we.
Can you just go up to the, sorry.
Sorry, Chris Heap from Town Council's office. The only other things I'd add is that for the Hammerhead turnaround, we could include a condition in a decision requiring that it be kept clear, which would be enforceable as a matter of subdivision control. We could also probably require an easement be granted to the town so that we would have a title right to keep that clear that way too. So there's a couple different ways you could handle enforcing that be kept open.
So real quick while you're there, you sent the board and everybody a letter today, just kind of regarding your opinion, town council's opinion on the legality of the subdivision in general, and you essentially agreed with the statements that the previous attorney, the client or the applicant's attorney stated tonight, for the most part. Right?
I did. We got a letter from Peter, the applicant's attorney, late last week, expressing the opinion that the applicant had the right to use the full width of the 50-foot wide right-of-way, half of which they actually own in fee, half of which they do not. And we took a look at the letter, all the cases he cited in the letter, and tend to agree with that conclusion. It is true as a matter of common law and the case law that when a piece of property is bounded by a private way, the property that is bounded by that private way has the right to develop, to use the private way, and that right to use it carries with it the right to improve the way, usually for its full width. Oftentimes that's not necessary, but it does. You do generally have the right to improve and develop a private road if your property is bounded by it.
Thank you. Any other board comments?
So I think we have a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, right. I was going
Not
to
related specifically to this.
Yep, I was going to get to you next. So yeah, if there's no board comments, we can go to neighbors or anyone else.
Yeah, please, please.
Just give me 1 second. My name's Dan Pasquarello. I'm an attorney. I represent the McGuires who live at 54 Meyer Road. So I did prepare a letter for you, and I think I have the right number of copies, Patrick. So here's the original. And while I'm handing this out, let me just cut to the chase. And you probably surmised that the McGuires oppose the proposed subdivision here. Six. So that's one original and 10 copies. Do you need an 11th? You're good? Okay.
I have a member missing.
Okay, great. So as this is being handed out, let me just describe briefly what we tried to do here, was to give you a little bit of background about the land that's in dispute. I understand that this board has been down this road.
Wait,
What?
do you have one of these, Ed?
No, I don't.
We need another
Get
one
one
of these.
more?
Need another one?
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So, in a nutshell, before I get into this and the specifics, and what I try to do is provide for you the relevant plans here, is that the property that is proposed to be subdivided is subject to various restrictions on previous plans that have come before this board that prevent the addition of additional or of more residences on this particular property. There's two particular plans that I can point you to for that. We also disagree with the assessment of the use of the easement. This private way and the easement rights, what they're trying to be used for is not what the original intent of the easement was for. So while it is true that each of these properties owns to the center line of the private way, so 25 feet into the private way, and you would have a right to use the easement, that use has to be reasonable. And what we submit to this board is what is being proposed is not a reasonable use of this. First of all, nobody has denied the Shamsudins the ability to use the existing private way to access what I'll call Parcel C, and explain that in a moment. They don't have a right to convert the private way into a subdivision road, which is what they're trying to do here. So there's a difference between easement rights and the ability to use and what's reasonable for that use and full-blown conversion to a subdivision road. So I get the sense that this board is familiar with this property, that you've dealt with this before, so I'll try to be quick here. I've attached a number of exhibits here, the first being the Town Assessor's Map 30, just to identify what these parcels are. So if you look at Exhibit 1, you have the applicant's properties at Lot 11 and Lot 12. So historically, Lot 11 comprised parts of lots 28 and 29 of the original Meyer Road subdivision, which you have at Exhibit 2. And this is a little bit faint. I apologize for the quality of the copy, but this is what the registry has. If you open to Exhibit 2 and you look over to the left side of the exhibit, you can see the bend in Meyer Road there. The lot just sort of horizontal to the bend against the train tracks is 29, and behind that is 28. And then as you move right, you have 27 and 26. So 26 and 27 is what eventually became the Shamsudins' Parcel 12, the McKechnie's property, and the McGuire's property. And we'll get to that in 1 second. So there's a background section at the beginning of this memo, and if you move to Exhibit 3, Exhibit 3 is a 1955, I believe, A&R plan that creates the private way. So you can still see lots 29 and 28, and what was 26 and 27 have become parcels A and B. So this is where, on this A&R plan, this private way first comes into existence. The following year, 1956, you have another division of this property, also by the Tremblays. So what was A and B, lots 26 and 27, has now become C, D, and E. Now C is the current lot 12. You can see above lots 28 and 29. And eventually, I'll get to this in a later exhibit, but 28 and 29 just become 28 at a later point in time. I'm previewing that, but I believe that counsel for the applicant submitted this plan with his correspondence to the board when he was discussing the easement. I don't think that there's any dispute that the purpose of this right-of-way here, when it was for A and B, now it's for C, D, and E, is for access to these 3 lots, C, D, and E. So, but one thing that was left out from the applicant's correspondence is that there's a condition on this plan when this comes into effect. You can see it in handwriting on the top right of the board. So this plan was approved on a condition, and I've put this in the memo. It's a little bit difficult to read. You actually have to piece that first sentence in from another source, but it's approved on condition, and this is on page 2 of my letter, approved on condition that only one dwelling house designed for residence by one family and its accessory buildings may be erected on each of said lots C, D, and E. So that would mean that as of now, you have one residence already on C. That's the Shamsudin's property. You have one residence already on D. That's the McKechnie's. And you have one on E, which is the McGuire's. There's one additional division to this. Lot E was divided into B1 and B2, which is the next exhibit at number 5. The McGuire's are the B1 lot, which is the vast majority of parcel E. You have approximately 1 acre towards the front that became B2. I understand that the McGuire's, however, still own the strip between B2 and the right-of-way. So I believe they own all the way up to Meyer Road for purposes of access here. So what's important here is that you have, well, 2 things. You have this restriction as to how many residences can go onto these parcels, and you have the original intent of what this easement was for. So with respect to parcel C, the only intent for that would really be to access parcel C. However, parcel C still retained access on Meyer Road itself. So for practical purposes, the only properties using Meyer Road extension or Meyer extension have been the McKechnie's and the McGuire's. It's essentially a private driveway. So with that restriction, you're not entitled to put, as this subdivision would do, 2 more lots on parcel C. So instead of having 1 dwelling, this proposed definitive plan would put 3 there. The only way you could do that is if they were to go back and try to modify or amend this plan under Section 81W of the subdivision control law, which I don't believe that they're doing, but they don't have the consent from the McGuire's to do that. I don't know if they have the McKechnie's consent. I doubt that they do, but I don't represent the McKechnie's. I only represent the McGuire's. Something else that's important here to point out, and let me jump ahead to Exhibit 7, which is the applicant's deed for this. The deed for the Shamsudin's property, it addresses 2 parcels in that deed, you'll see. The first, you can see in parcel 1 expressly identifies it as parcel C on the 1956 plan. It has an explicit reference to that plan. Parcel 2 is what was formerly lots 28 and 29. If you turn to the second page of the deed, you can see that those premises were conveyed to the Shamsudins subject to and with the benefit of any and all easements, restrictions, and agreements of record. So this is obviously a restriction of record. Their deed references the 1956 plan itself. It has the condition on it. So the first reason you should deny this proposed request, this proposed subdivision plan, is that C, D, and E are limited to one residence per lot, one dwelling per lot, and this would violate that restriction. On top of that, you have another restriction from a 1960 plan that refers to lot 28. That's attached as Exhibit 6. So if you look at Exhibit 6, there was a subdivision plan that concerned lot 28, and you can see there in the description of the lot, it's formerly lots number 28 and 29. So the first condition on this plan for approval in 1960 was that not more than one dwelling house and a pertinent garage will be built on lot 28. So my understanding is if you go back and look at Assessor's Map 30 for the town, what was lot 28 already has more than one residence on it. So you can't add additional residences onto lot 28. So you now have two sources of restrictions to prevent this subdivision plan and to overburden these lots. So those are two reasons why we submit the board should deny this definitive plan. With respect to the easements or the use of the easement, this is not what the intended use of this easement was for. This is for a new use. If you look at the subdivision plan, I don't know which one is up there. Can I use this, Bob, to put? Try not to ignore that. So if you take a look at what's proposed here, you're merging parcel C, which is roughly this lot here, and lot 28. Each one of the three lots, though, is a combination of both lot 28 and parcel C. So you've now converted, or what they're trying to do is convert the use of this easement from access to parcel C to effectively accessing parcels 28 and 29 here, which that's not the original purpose of this easement. So you have in my letter, and I won't go through everything that's in here, although I pretty much have, that private ways are supposed to be confined in their use to the purposes for which they are granted, and they can't be further extended by the grantees. So this would be effectively an overburdening of this easement, which we don't think would be appropriate. For your purposes, however, we think that the restrictions on the uses of the lots should be sufficient. The McGuire's, they're at 54, so just to put this in perspective, we were just talking about the hammerhead or the cul-de-sac, which would effectively be pretty much in front of their house. So you'd have those emergency vehicles backing up pretty much right in front of their house. So we don't think this is an appropriate definitive plan. And let me just note, in closing, I mentioned earlier that this board, not this particular board, but this board in the past, has already been down this road. There's been litigation about this very subdivision that was attempted by the applicant's predecessor and was denied in the 90s by the land court. So I guess the question for you is, how many times does this particular board need to say no to the same proposed subdivision that is obviously subject to restrictions that should preclude its approval? Yes.
Yeah. Sure. Was this information provided to the land court when they were adjudicating at the most recent last year?
Do you mean the current litigation?
Yes, I'm sorry, it still is current, yes.
Yeah, I don't know that. I'm not involved in that litigation. I understand that litigation involves the applicant's appeal of your denial of the A&R.
Okay, I just wanted to understand. And for the purposes, because what you presented sounded like it was very well constructed, rational, logical. It's a lot for me personally to take in in a 20-minute presentation. So I'm going to default to the town's attorneys to either right now interpret what you've given us, or say we really need to take a look at what you've provided to determine if in fact what yours has stated is the governing law.
Sure, I would expect you to do that, and I would hope you would.
So what I'd like to hear from, if it's okay, I'd like to hear from the town's attorneys in response to what you may have just heard for the first time.
Thank you. I'll answer your first question first, which was, has all this information been presented to the land court as part of the recent litigation? And the answer to that is it hasn't been presented to the court yet, but that case is still pending.
Right.
That case,
I know it got remanded back to us to see if we could figure out a solution.
So we've had conferences. We've talked about the case, but that case is actually currently scheduled for trial in April.
Okay.
So that's still pending, and going to get decided eventually. But the arguments and the evidence has not been presented to the court yet. That would happen in trials coming up soon. And in answer to your second question, we're certainly familiar with all of the plans and all of the deeds that have ever been recorded concerning this land. What I haven't had the benefit of until this evening is the arguments that were just presented. So, and I haven't even seen a physical copy of the letter that you all have in front of you. So we will certainly respond to all of the arguments that you've heard, but we're going to need a little bit of time to do that.
Yeah. So can I make a suggestion? Mm-hmm. I'd like our attorneys to talk to this attorney whose name I don't remember. I have Pasquarello. Yes. And determine what level of legitimacy there is to this argument, while at the same time the applicant goes to the fire chief, Griffin Engineering, and work out the details of a hammerhead or a cul-de-sac, whatever is acceptable to local jurisdictional authority, and then come back with a definitive, as degree you can, a legal opinion and a public safety opinion, so that we have a clean discussion here, because right now it's too much information for me personally to make any kind of logical, intelligent decision.
I think that's fair.
Does that make sense?
Can I just have one other?
Yeah, one sec. Is everybody okay with that on the board? I mean,
Yeah,
I think
I
that
am.
makes total sense.
Hold on.
Sure, go ahead.
Are you all set? No other questions?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, so just briefly, just one other point. I think these guys did a great job describing kind of the situation and everything that we've seen. I apologize for my voice too, but so just one other piece, and I don't know why it hasn't come up, but the town bylaws say that you can't use the private way as frontage. And I have the copy of the meeting minutes from 1992, when the board agreed unanimously that they cannot use that as frontage. So, again, a lot of things have been discussed. I just didn't want to miss that one piece.
Just a point of clarification, a true private way that was either done by proper subdivision or was essentially on the ground before subdivision control in 1955. Those ways can be used.
Okay.
Now, what I think that argued, I'm speculating here, is that, and what we thought the last time this came, was this way we did not see in existence before 55, and we never saw a truly approved subdivision plan, other than an A&R, which is not a subdivision plan, which is why we denied the A&R. But so a private way can be used if it meets certain requirements.
Okay, again, I'm just,
just to be clear, yeah.
There's a document here that says.
Make sure that that's in the hands of the two attorneys.
Yeah, no, I think
that's part of the record.
Yep. And I'm assuming you guys have all the records too, and I know they're not easy to find and everything else. I just happen to have.
We're going to defer to the legal advice that we get.
Yep.
I'm not denying that that's true.
Yeah, no,
but
appreciate
I want, in total, I'd like all this information to be well examined and thought out,
absolutely.
And them coming back with an opinion, that's another piece of information that's good
Yep.
to be added to the case.
Okay, that was all.
Yeah, that previous application to the planning board from the 90s, we haven't seen a whole lot of. And so that is something that may come into play, depending on what all was in there and what they
Okay,
decided.
great,
so.
thanks, that's all.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Charlotte McCarthy. I live on Meyer Road. I own B2. And I just want to make the point that when we came before the board between 1998 and it was, the subdivision was approved in 2001, we were denied frontage on the private way and had to do frontage on Meyer Road. We would have preferred frontage on the private way. We were denied. So on that basis, I don't like what's going on.
Right, which is why we denied the A&R, but you're.
No, I understand that part. I saw that meeting.
Yep.
I just wanted to make that point. Thank you very much.
Okay. So we should continue this?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, do we need to read the language again?
I don't
or
think
do
so.
we
No.
just say that we'd like to continue it?
No.
Okay. Shall I make a motion?
Please.
I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing for a definitive subdivision application by Nazir Shamshuddin for the properties in question.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous? Great. So
Okay.
we should say, well,
Do we
2
have-
weeks, or when's
Yeah,
our next meeting?
we need to add a date, which would be February the 19th.
Okay. We can amend that motion to the
Yeah,
19th. That's fine.
I'd like to make a motion to amend my motion to add, continue the public hearing on a definitive subdivision application by Nazir Shamshuddin to February
19.
19th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
And we're going to get an opinion back from our attorney.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Free time for your packets for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Scrambled eggs.
I had to say my piece. That's okay. I know. Good to see you.
Yes.
I'm Maureen, I went to high school.
Yes.
Oh, did you? Nice to meet you.
I'm her mother.
And that new student from Short Loan, she's Mrs. McCarthy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Next up is 354 Island Street.
Patrick, excuse me, while they're coming up, when did we continue, which meeting did we continue mobility to?
The 19th also.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Jill Mann here on behalf of Canterbrook Capital. Here with me this evening is Larry Smith, the now owner of the project. Just to report some updates, they are doing well, progressing with demolition and the construction of the roadway, so things are going as planned. We are now in the process of desiring to begin construction of the model unit, basically, which is why we're here. Because as you know, the covenant that we put in place requires that there can be no building and there can be no sales until this board would release. So what we're seeking is the right to simply release to allow us to construct building 1, which is units 1, 2, and 3, but to not release it for the purposes of sale or anything else. It's just we need to be able to build the model unit, or we'd like to be able to build the model unit. So that's what we're here this evening for. And then also, we did provide for you some examples of modifications to the architectural plans. Essentially, when we went to, as you all know, when you go to actually build and develop the construction plans, it never seems to work out. You're always like, I don't really like that. I want to do something a little different. And Mr. Smith's desire was to try to create a little bit more of a high-end look in the particular building, which is why you have what's in front of you. So, you know, he instead of having painted garage doors that are not wood simulated, he desires to put in wood simulated doors for garage doors. So they still will be a varied design, and that I included. Some of the attributes of the home, for example, the bay, where it sticks out and it does this kind of thing. Instead of doing that, I guess what is more in vogue and what is more desirable among people who purchase is to simply put on either a sunroom or a screen room, because people don't like bay windows anymore. I guess they're not. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I think I might be a deaf person. I can
Can't
like
shut the door, so.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was like, so we included that. We're sticking with the same color theme, you know, the variability. The roof line is a little bit changed because you can see how we ended up with some, the way the roof line was designed. I guess when you really looked at it, the front faces were all, or facades of the building were all going to kind of be flat. So what this new design allowed is some variability where you have in and out. So you have, I always look at Mr. Stein, so it's got more of a varied architectural design. So that's what was included in your package too. And what we did to allow the board to kind of compare was to show you the old and show you the new.
Did you bring those with you? We don't have those in our package. I know we got them by email.
Oh, yeah, of course
We got them by email. You just didn't put them in the package, so.
Printing them out.
Mr. Smith just had his hip redone, so I wanted to see if it was okay. There you go.
Thank you.
We can share this.
Yeah.
I got one for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we did was we provided you the cut sheet with the garage doors.
So maybe we can, Jill, maybe we can back up.
Yeah, please.
And talk about the architectural differences now that we have pictures in front of us.
Sure, absolutely.
These are some of the older, I only have 2 of these, so these you're going to have to share.
Okay.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, good morning. You don't have enough trucks and front end loaders and back loaders on it.
Some more there, right?
Huh? You need more, yeah, definitely.
Would you you want to talk about, you can talk about it if you want instead of me, that's fine. If I may, I'm going to let Larry, Mr. Smith, kind of go through and just walk you through the changes, Mr. Mitchell, so that it's a little more comprehensive and maybe if you just highlight for them the changes.
Like an improvement to me.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and thanks for taking the time. Larry Smith. I'm the developer for we like to call it the Village of Canterbrook Estates, by the way. So, and just a quick update, I think Jill gave it to you if you desire. We have a lot of trucks there, a lot of heavy equipment, and we're taking down, we got our demolition permit about a week ago, and we're taking down the arena, the barn, and the stables. We cut the roadway in about 300 feet. And I'm sorry, prior to that, we put the erosion control around the entire property and all the places that it was called out in the drawings. And the Conservation Commission came and inspected it, gave us to go ahead to start from their perspective. And we sent Patrick an update, which is a requirement every 30 days, every 60 days, every quarter, to send an update on our progress, which we're happy to do. So, as Jill mentioned, we started to take the old drawings, or I should say the original drawings, and our architects started to put those together. And by the way, if we were to build that, we could save a lot of money, because, and don't take this the wrong way, it would look like track housing. I think the town and the residents would be extremely unhappy if we built what was originally approved. So we tried to do something a lot different. And I could tell you, just go down a quick list. First of all, it's in the same footprint, so nothing's changed in those dimensions. All the setbacks from side to side are still the same. The roof lines are a little bit more interesting than that were originally designed. The windows are much more interesting. There's a few transoms out front and trim around the windows. We removed, as Jill mentioned, we removed that dining room bump out that is kind of antiquated in our world today. We haven't used that anything like that in the last few years. I think what the biggest change that might require some further conversation is the garage doors. So instead of a double garage door, we find it much more appealing to have two garage doors, two single garage doors versus a double.
Is that what we're looking at here, Larry?
Excuse me?
Is that what we're looking
That is correct. The original plan, Rich, had one single stamped garage door.
What you're referencing.
And I also, we could kind of dive into the garage doors if you'd like. I happen to have this same garage door at my house that I built about 2 years ago. So, but we're using wood type, it's a stamped wood grain finish. It's a vinyl and a steel. And you have to be 3 feet away from this before you realize it's not real, either mahogany or cedar or light oak.
You're talking about on the doors?
The doors themselves, the surface of the garage door. And I gave everybody, if everybody has the second handout, we varied the garage door styles to what's called stamp short and stamp long. And then we also added 3 types of wood type surfaces, to mahogany, cedar, and a light oak, which we think will be a really nice look. And we also alternated the window designs, so no window designs are the same. And we'll space those throughout the community as best possible. And we also chose hardware as well for all the doors. So I can tell you firsthand, since I go in and out of my garage door every day, it's a high-quality garage door, if that matters to the board. If you'd like, I could walk you through the 3 style homes. On the first page is the single-family home, and to give you some perspective, as a reminder, there's 23 individual units. There are 8 single-family homes, 3 sets of duplexes, and 3 sets of triplexes. The first drawing, the first rendering, is the single-family home, and it shows corbels, much more detail on windows. We put an oval window at the front door, and that's stone around the front door as well. And an overhang over the garage, which will be what we do for canned lighting versus a fixture on the garage. The second is the rear elevation, and one of the things we changed in the rear elevation. I'm sorry?
Of the single family?
Yes. This is all. Yes, that is a single family. We changed, on the original drawings, there was a door going into the master bedroom, and our buyers, we know from a safety standpoint, with the master bedroom on the first floor, do not want a door to an exterior door. So we eliminated that, put in an oversized window, and we added transoms to the main door going out to the patio. On the third drawing is the duplex unit, and we've carried the same theme. The wood panel garage doors, the overhang, the corbels throughout the roof line, the oval window, and the details around the front window, front main windows.
Larry, just a quick question.
Sure,
on
Rich.
the cupola, is that going to be copper?
Yes.
Okay.
And that changes color awful quickly, by the way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I love it when it's brand new. The fourth page is the rear elevation again of the duplex. Nothing exciting about the rear until we get later on in this. And then I think one of the biggest design changes you'll see if you look at the next page, that's the triplex. And what's a little deceiving in this building, it shows a single-family home next to it. But if you look at the first, I'm sorry, that's not the case. That is the entire triplex with the 3 sets of garages. And again, carrying the same theme with the oversized windows, the cupolas, the corbels, and the fairly large trim on the corner boards. And the next picture is the rear elevation as well. I think we got this in here twice. I'm sorry. If you turn to the next page, or maybe so we could all, we should be on the drawing that says A262 in the bottom right. That is the triplex.
So what were we looking at?
I think it's a good question. I think you were looking at a duplex with a single-family unit next to it. So that's what that is.
A262 is the triplex.
A262 is the triplex then. My error.
Well, they have them labeled as AAA and triple B.
So a AAA and triple B should be a triplex, one in one direction, the other is a mirror of it. Because there is a triplex on the other side of the street. So Brian, I could tell what you do for a living. Thank you.
Along those lines, is there a chance on the triplex on sheet 242, right unit? There's you've got the gable garage, you've got the gable on the shed dormer, and then the next dormer is a hip. Like a lot of different roofs going on. Could you maybe make that one a gable? That single dormer? Yeah. So you've got, the gable on the shed, and then the hip.
Oh, yes.
So I'm just wondering if that could be a gable. Great.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Is that what you were talking about over the entryway?
Well, there's the garage, and then over the entryway, there's a shed dormer with a little gable on it.
No, I got it.
The next dormer is a little.
Yeah.
It's odd, yeah.
Yeah, it should be
going on.
It should be a gable.
Okay.
I know.
I see it, yeah. I
See that?
it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like the
I think
third
it's
gable
because
in
it's
if you
connected
change it.
right here. It's not in the middle.
Or fourth. 1, 2, 3, fourth.
And then if you turn the next page over from 262, 263, that's just a rear elevation, as best can be seen.
But double, looks like.
But you set aside my curiosity, the appendage on, I guess it's the back of the side of the house.
What page are you on?
Well, it's on many pages, but A263.
Yes.
Okay.
That is the garage.
Well, no, wait, what are you talking about?
This thing.
No,
Oh, that's
it's
the
a-
fireplace.
It looks like a little outhouse. I don't know.
Oh, yes.
fireplace.
That's not an outhouse.
fireplace.
That's a direct vent fireplace.
All right. My curiosity got me. I got.
That's okay. That's okay. As long as our buyers don't think it's an outhouse, we're all set.
It's too small.
The next page on 263 is just a rear elevation. And then the next page is option B. That is a sunroom, which is 10 feet off the house by about 12 feet long. And that's shown on a single-family unit, but they go on all the different style units. That is one of our most popular option. From the inside, it opens up the entire interior flow of the unit. And then on the last page, on option C, is the same footprint, but it's a screened-in porch.
But what?
It's a screened-in porch, and that's an option C.
So it's a one season.
It looks like
No,
shingles.
yes. It's not heated. It's not.
I got it.
It's not contiguous to the home.
Yep. Okay.
So unless anybody wants to fill out a reservation agreement and buy one, does anybody have any questions?
Say, when do I move in?
So, this looks good to me. I'll defer to our
It's much better.
I'll defer to our architects.
Yeah, so it probably added about $35,000 to each, on average, to each unit compared to what was designed earlier.
Any idea what your sales price range is?
Sure. The middle unit, there's
Tell me what we're talking about. Single family, triplex?
so in a triplex, I'll go from lowest price higher. The triplex, the middle unit, there's two style middle units. In the planning board decision, we have to have a unit that's 1,300 square feet.
Right.
The 1,300 square feet is about $585,000.
Okay.
The 1,800 square feet is $625,000 approximately. The end units in both the triplex and the duplex are in the high sixes to low sevens, and the single-family home is just over $900,000.
Okay.
And by the way, we're using those prices, not necessarily from the market prices, but from what we sold in Gloucester over the last few years at our Village at Magnolia Shores plus 55 community.
And the duplex was again?
The duplex?
Yeah.
The duplex is in the low sevens.
Low sevens?
Correct. Well, high sixes to low sevens, depending on where it's orientated and what the market bears.
How many square feet is the single family?
The single family is 2,560. The end units are 2,350 plus or minus. And there's many end units because you're referring to the end units in the triplex and the end units in a duplex.
And I'm sorry, I'm making you repeat this, but the 1,300 square foot is, you said like
585.
585, okay.
So 585 is your lowest priced unit?
That's correct. In the current market conditions, if things changes, it
And
could go
somewhere
up.
around 900 is your highest price?
The single-family homes.
Bless you. My only other comment is on the garage overhang.
Yep.
Especially on a few of them where they're pretty long, where you're going over a bunch of doors. Having like a bracket or something would be nice to like visually hold the thing up.
That might look nice. Let me see.
Which one are you referring to?
The one where it's a duplex?
Really all of them, but like, the duplex, A222, just a really long, 2 or 3 foot, whatever it is, overhang to not be supported visually by anything.
So are you talking about putting like
Yeah, just some kind of a bracket, something on the ends and even in the middle to
break it up?
Hold it up, yeah.
You're talking about something structural, too?
Well,
you mean it to be structural?
They can make them structural like this, but yeah, like they're exactly. They're the longer ones especially, right? It's just something.
You just got to make sure they're out of the way of cars coming in and out.
Well, yeah, no.
By structural, I mean that they would actually give support to.
Well,
there would be no need to make them
there's
structural.
no need, but you can make them structural this way, but it's just the look of it. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Which it is much nicer to have the single garage doors.
It makes a big difference.
It breaks it up.
It's better.
And you have trim around the garage doors, and the overhang makes it really nice at night with a can lighting versus a fixture on the side.
Larry, when do you expect to have the 3, what the word I want, show?
Model unit?
The model.
Thank you.
Well, that has a lot to do with what goes on here tonight. So
I understand that.
yeah, so we could potentially apply for a building permit within the next probably 6 to 8 weeks. We still have some construction drawings to finish, and then it's we could have a building in a finished building and furnished a little after 6 months from that point.
So July.
Correct.
Okay.
Are these going to be on a slab, or are they going to have cellars?
Oh, these are basements, full basements.
Full basements.
Mm-hmm.
With
8-foot ceilings.
I saw the bulkhead.
Yes.
Seen it on the back.
Yes.
You're right.
I don't think there's any walkouts the way the terrain works. To my knowledge, right now, there's no walkouts.
Yeah, I see I got the bulkheads. Some question.
Could you give Patrick a list of the prices by the drawing numbers, just so
Sure.
I couldn't take down all the numbers and.
You mean send an email with the prices?
Yeah.
So remember, and I'm happy to do that, but
Do a
there's,
range.
there's the local preference as well, remember. So just to update you on that, we have to offer all these units to town residents or family members of town residents that are over 55 years of age. So that's part of our initial marketing plan.
Perfect.
So everybody will know fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you're asking for tonight?
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, no, so all we're asking for tonight is relief and execution of the partial release for the covenant. And then if the board would seek to substitute these plans subject to, what we'll do is just revise the plan and give them to Patrick with the changes that Mr. Stein had asked for and that the board thinks would be an improvement to the revised plans. So that's it, acceptance of the new architecturals, and if the board chooses to do so, to allow us to build building 1, but we still have to come back to you for the typical release to sell.
Okay.
And I do have those documents.
What size is building 1 going to be?
Building 1 is a triplex.
Triplex?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's units 1, 2, and 3.
Does anybody have any issues with allowing them to do the model unit?
Nope.
No.
Patrick.
Okay.
We need to make a motion on that?
Well, so, yeah, how should we structure the motion? I mean,
You have to make a motion to approve a partial release of the covenant to allow only construction of building 100, because the covenant that you will sign, and then to authorize the execution of the release, which specifically says that I have to return when it's time to build any other building, and to get a release from any covenant to sell. So I can't sell anything until you'd sign that as well. That does not do that. That just allows the construction.
Jill, could I just ask?
Yes.
Will the layout of the road be completed and the water pipes crossing the wetlands and all that?
They will not be totally completed, which is why we seek a partial release of the waiver. So while they're actually doing the roadway and finishing it, they build this unit. It's just easier because then when the roadway is done completely and we're ready to really mark it, then before we probably would come in with the rest of them, the road would be done at that point, but not final coated, but at least laid in completely. At this point, if you go out there, very small area of the road is done. We have not done all of the work because we just got that demo permit.
I know that, yeah.
Yeah. So to answer your question is no, it won't be completely done to that point. But when the home is, when the unit and building is done, I bet it will be.
Well, it will have to be.
Yeah.
Because you can't connect, you have to, in order to get an occupancy permit, you have to hook to the septic. So in order to hook to the septic, it has to be completed and everything has to be done. All the pipes have to be laid, drainage, everything.
Yep. Okay. Who wants to make that motion?
So
Don't
make
smirk.
a motion that for a partial release of covenant for the Canterbrook Estates. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. You want to call it the village?
That's what we call
To be
it.
able
Still just
to-
Canterbrook Estates right now, but we
Or
can.
to be able to construct building 1, units 1, 2, and 3.
Second?
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nobody opposed? Unanimous?
And then if you just sign that, then I have to record it at the registry in order for it to happen.
So the other thing we need to make a motion on is the changes to the
Yes.
architecturals.
Yes.
That's more general in nature, so I think I can handle that. So I make a motion that we approve the proposed architectural changes to the design of, what are we calling it?
You could call it the Village of
Canterbrook
Canterbury.
Estates.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Second.
would just say, as shown on plans.
Oh, do you want me to go through it?
Well, no, as shown on plans by J.D. LaGrasse and Associates dated tonight, actually, today.
Okay, so let me try that again. So I make a motion that we approve the proposed architectural changes for Cantor Brook Estates as shown in the drawings submitted by the applicant on January 29th, 2019.
With the changes.
Changes.
With the changes acceptable to the board and approved by the board.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Looks nice.
No, I want to keep that.
Yeah.
So, 'cause that's
Have that Gothic Tudor, wicked looking thing.
Take it easy, Ray.
Okay.
Are you staying for more? Are you staying for more stuff? Yeah. Hey, mama.
So,
Yeah, something.
I very much appreciate the time and effort you put into the letter that you sent to us.
Joe.
Very professional. No, I mean, it was very professional because it really helps us. And I think your comment about this
noticed
wasn't his
that,
first rodeo, that he should have known to come to you.
Nothing's raised in these patios.
Okay, I was saying that I think your comment
They're all
that he
laid
should have,
right
this
on
wasn't
grade.
his first rodeo, he should have known that
Surprised they
coming to
don't
you
lift
was.
them up a little bit.
Well,
Everybody else in
may depend on the house.
show me the plans, we sit
There.
down with us.
All of these are.
Well, and we should in the future just say, before you even submit it to us, has this been reviewed and approved by the fire chief?
I didn't get that far before. It is what it is.
Right, no, I'm just saying, it's good that you're setting, yes, and the standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, oh man, really happening then, huh?
Appreciate it.
Good.
We have something in place so we don't come into this situation.
So I noticed that Donna wrote something.
Thank you.
I read that, but then this other guy,
Well, this was from over a year ago.
Oh, dear.
okay.
That was something.
Why did we send it out this week?
Well, I think I just want everybody to have that.
Yeah.
To
Okay.
review before we, just background. So Patrick, master planning updates. I don't know if you received anything from our consultant today. At our last meeting with the consultant, we had talked about them sending us a list of possible stations for our February 5th meeting at the library. I don't think we've gotten anything yet.
No, we had made that request, and I haven't received anything today, or prior to today. As I do get something, and I've been emailing various members of the company there, trying to find one that could respond to me. As soon as I get something, I'll send it out to all the board members so we can get our teeth into it. If there are things that we need to prepare for, number of tables, number of chairs, yeah, et cetera, we'll take care of that.
Yeah. And she did say that now that it's not going to happen tonight, or we won't see it tonight, that she could call individuals who will be at the stations, and we can just review with her individually. So.
Roles and responsibilities.
Yeah.
I did go to the library, and they had, I think there were 9 tables there. It was set up for some other previous event. So, and there were about, I'm going to say 70 chairs, so it should be sufficient. We'll just need to get in there the day of to.
I've got information on other stuff too, if everybody else is set with that, with this, with the master plan thing.
Are you
Okay.
going to take this home?
I
Put it in my files.
reposted on all 3 sites, the Hamilton Wenham community page, the residence page, and Affordable Housing Trust, Affordable Housing Friends of Hotora, yeah, that one. And I did it by scanning the 2x3 card. Did you see it? Okay, yeah, and the little thingy up in the corner does work when you scan it that way. There has been a glitch for about 5 people. Did anybody else follow that on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's been several people who've had the issue.
There's 5 that I know of. Do you know of more? I'm serious.
Yeah.
There are more? Okay. It seems like you do it and it just keeps...
It's being addressed.
Yeah, it's being addressed.
Yes. And it hopefully will be resolved. Let's put it this way. If we don't hear something by, late morning, maybe a direct call to say, this needs to be fixed now?
Yeah. It sounded like it was something with the website, right? SurveyMonkey.
Yeah, because because the people that reported it on Facebook, there was about 5 people. They covered both Windows machines and Mac machines.
It's the site.
Yeah, okay. It's everything.
It seems like it's the site, and it's based on how you answer certain questions and how it takes you to the next.
Right.
So
if you answered that you were very likely or extremely likely to move from Hamilton in the next 5 years, it takes you to a different window, page, whatever it is, and that's where the trouble seems to start.
So it's only people who've said that they're highly likely to leave Hamilton that get stuck.
That's what we know.
That's what
I don't know if that
I-
happened to everybody. That's what we're trying to figure out.
I didn't think of going down that line.
Anyway.
So anything else, Patrick, other than just saying to everybody that's watching, February 5th at the library, it's next Tuesday night, 6 o'clock, I believe, right? Or we say 7?
I think it's 7 to 9.
7 to 9, thank you. Anything else on that?
That's it.
Okay. Next are future bylaw amendments. I don't know, I know Steve's here tonight. I saw that we had micro wireless cellular communication on the docket tonight to chat about. I know you and Dan have been kind of going back and forth about changes to our cell bylaw, essentially, to put in language and definitions for the micro wireless that we're dealing with mobility and others. So can you just kind of bring us up to date on where you are with that?
Right. Dan has looked at our existing bylaw, thought it was a good template to just insert the term microcell, which you'll see highlighted in yellow. What I did is I took our existing bylaw and I made those insertions all the way through, made some other modifications, adding in the pole or whatever seems to be apparently geared toward microcell equipment. You'll see that through the text as well. We had originally thought about using a text that was specifically geared to microsystems, but they were often longer than this bylaw, which didn't really make sense. And as Dan looked at it, thought about it, our existing bylaw, he felt, and I think that we've seen too, works pretty well. So what we've done is we've proposed language in there. You'll see on the next to last page, there are 2 areas there where Dan believed we could remove the performance guarantee requirement. He also felt like the annual certification demonstrating compliance also could be removed as well. So effectively, this is what we're proposing. I think it's probably worthwhile to think in terms of setting up a public hearing so we can pursue this. Obviously, this type of technology is coming our way. One of them already has. So I think that it will be useful for us to have a better control set of tools than we do right now.
We still need to do some definitions, right?
Yeah, we need to do definitions because unfortunately the existing bylaw doesn't have communication towers, microcells, or telecommunication wireless antenna facilities defined at all. Not in this bylaw and not in the definition section either. So we'd be adding that as well.
So Dan is still working on that, or is he done with his piece?
I had asked him if he has some available to us, so, you know, as soon as I can get that, I'll send those out to everybody. If I don't hear from him, I'll start looking myself.
Okay.
Steve, I know you had some comments.
Yeah,
Can you just go up to the podium, please?
I'm curious, I'm going to talk to Dan about the certification, about that. Steve Boudreau and my wife Emily. We own 161 Bay Road and 169 Bay Road. And we're the micro cell poles going in front of 161. First, I question the legality of them coming in and saying, this is our right of way, we're going to drop a pole in. All right, I have any kind of butters notice would be fine. They said they sent one. I never got one. I found out about it 3 weeks ago. So I think there should be something in place. If they're going to, these are popping up. These are coming. For the first time I was approached about this, they told me there was 3.2 miles of them going on 1A. They've also talked to Wenham about doing it. So this is going to be, this is a plan. So notify the abutters. How about a deposit to clean this technology up when it's over? They're new telephone poles, they got creosote poured in the ground, they got electronics, they got all kinds of stuff. They're sitting down there, I don't know what the long term, how long they're gonna be last, 5, 8 years? If we get stuck with these, a way to get rid of them. I have tenants, this first and last, same thing with these. These would be nice. Public safety, the one they're proposing is 35 feet from a bedroom. Where do you, there's a warning on the pole halfway up says do not go past at this point because of radio frequency waves, it's dangerous, but you're going to put one 35 feet away from a bedroom. The annual certifications, I don't know why you take that away, because you want to make sure these cells, if you have to get stuck with them, that they're working to the best of their capabilities. How about a central map that we can see, just walk in and see all the coverage we have? Wenham just accepted an application from Verizon. They're replacing their 5G tech, or putting 5G technology in the steeple up there. That's going to improve the coverage downtown. I have AT&T. I have no problems downtown because of the upgraded steeple AT&T cell that's up there. Multiple use solutions. These poles that they're putting in, it's a single provider, and it's data only. Yeah. So if we have to have these things, they should be for sale, because if I drove downtown, I think this is a safety issue. If I drove downtown and I was driving and I was playing a video game on my phone or watching a YouTube video while I was driving, you don't need data while you're driving. Okay, if you want to do hands-free cellular, that's something totally different. And we have existing poles everywhere, and I've heard from pretty good sources that Verizon and AT&T have contracts to work with Verizon and National Grid to put antennas up on the existing poles. So,
well, so does mobility, but they at least said, remember you were there, that on certain poles, some of the ones we have downtown, or most of them, they can't put these facilities on that type of pole given where the wires are. Mm-hmm. That's what they said.
Well, across the street from me, in the MBTA lot, there's a right-of-way there, just on the other side of the sidewalk. Right. There's no wires near there. There's no residents near there. It's there. It hits the downtown.
Agreed.
So, also, there's some beautiful lights down in the park. That's what we asked for.
No, we told them.
I've told you this.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of good solutions out there.
Right, and that's what we asked them to come back and look at.
When the Cumberland Farms building went next door to me, the only concern I had as a business owner was that it stay as wide open as possible down there. You put a crosswalk down there in the middle of a block that no one ever stops for anyone walking across, and adding more clutter in an area we don't need clutter. I've fought, even the police chief talked about keeping it wide open so that people can see all the way around in both directions because it's a fast-moving road. So just...
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Anything else on that?
Yeah, my only comment is that probably we're gonna get some pushback on that annual certification, so it probably is gonna end up going back in.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to take it out.
No.
And my question is, does anybody ever check to see if?
Well, I think that was Dan's, does anybody hold them to that?
Right, right.
That's probably the case, is it never
Right.
happens.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Anything else on that? Any other updates on bylaws, Patrick?
Let's see. No.
So I did speak to Sean Farrell today about going to the select board potentially Monday night, the 4th, to discuss a number of things, one being the master planning, just give them an update. One being potential bylaws that we're gonna bring and they're gonna bring to town meeting. And a number of other things, and they were wondering if it might make sense to just have a joint meeting with us, or at least a quorum of us, or if it could just be one or two of us to go and just kind of answer questions and talk about what I just said. So I wanted to get your guys' feedback on if you think we should have a joint meeting, if it's worth it, or if we should just do me and Patrick or me and you, something like that.
Well,
and one other thing is, I told him, I'm like, we can bring him up to date on where we are with the master plan, but I also said that, our big meeting is February 5th. Maybe we wait till after that.
Yeah.
We'll know more
Yeah.
about that. And he got that, he understood that, but there is some timing issues with some of the other things, the bylaws and so forth, that they'd like to get started. So,
I got a hint from you in your description that they had bylaws.
Actually, that roadway acceptance bylaw.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Is,
that was the only one.
that we had recommended. It's Canton's bylaw that basically requires a neighborhood that has a private way. They're required to do the improvements and all of the engineering, all of the financial work.
You send it around.
Yeah, so, that's something that they want to talk through with the board or representatives
For
of
annual
the board.
town meeting?
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, because remember a while back, we had said,
Yeah.
let's just get rid of the policy. And they, after some back and forth, they think that we should have a policy, but basically it puts everything on the owners. I mean, it works, it does. the
Same difference.
It does the same thing.
They want clarity. So, my question is, do we really need to have a joint meeting? I'm just wondering.
I don't really think we do, honestly. Obviously, anybody can come that wants to, but they were just wondering how we wanted them to notice it, and if we are gonna have a quorum there, then it should be noticed.
Right.
So
Can they wait a week?
I'm trying to remember if they have a meeting the following Monday or not. Yeah, you have it right there.
So the only thing that would be under discussion would be the road acceptance bylaw.
Well, that and other bylaws that we're proposing.
Well, Rick, you're having Judy try and focus on policy that would be accepted by the town for improving the stock of housing or not. You wanted the fiscal impacts on the town. I think we have to.
Well,
yeah, well.
I mean, that's part of the scope, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that the selectmen ought to know that that's what your goal is.
Well, no, and yeah, right, and if we do this,
that's true.
I have no issue updating them on where we are with everything on that. We just won't have any information that will come out of the meeting of the next night.
No, of course not.
So.
They are scheduled to meet on the 4th and the 25th of February.
Why then?
Okay. I'm just wondering if one or two of us.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, if everybody's okay with that, I'm fine with that.
I mean, I don't think the whole board has to come. We're not making a decision, we're not making policy, we're not.
You're just relating.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can go. Okay, that's fine. They didn't really have an opinion one way or the other, so I'm fine with that. Okay. What's next? Annual report?
That was good.
I have had some Class A help with the annual report. Richard and Janelle have assisted with it. I've sent it to you individually. That needs to go to the town administrator's office.
Town manager?
Yeah,
Yeah.
town manager's office
Demoted him.
tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay.
So I'd like to get a vote, or if you have edits to it, tell me what they are so I can finish that up and get that to them tomorrow.
Excuse me.
I trust Janelle and Richard.
You can trust Janelle, don't trust me.
It was pretty thorough.
Didn't do much.
A lot of data.
I make a motion, we accept the annual report to be forwarded to the town manager.
Seconded.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Thank you. Has everybody had a chance to review minutes from January 8th?
Yes.
Comments, edits?
None. I make a motion, we accept the minutes of January 8th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? January 22nd? Any comments?
I ran out of motions.
Used them all up.
January 22nd is in there?
Yeah.
Yep.
That was our meeting at
Community
Senior
Center.
Center, yeah.
Richard, you want to make a motion?
No. Wait a minute. Okay, I move that we accept the minutes of January 22nd, 2019.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Well, all unanimous votes tonight.
Wow, such
Actually, haven't heard a non-unanimous vote yet.
Is that right?
Lots of
such
discussion,
accord.
But no.
And then you handed this,
Yes, I have been reminded by the town clerk that there are a number of members on the planning board who haven't signed the conflict of interest forms. Also, a number of us haven't signed the social media policy form as well.
Okay, I'll go in and get it.
so where is the social, this is the conflict of interest. Is that where we take the test?
That is the open meeting law.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
a
okay.
different thing.
I don't think I've signed this before. So,
Okay, I'll send it to you.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
So, anybody else need a blank one to fill out? Oh, and
The
this is
summary
the
of
social
conflict of
media.
interest.
I wonder if I signed this one.
What is that?
This is the social media.
Oh, so there is one around.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Yeah, that was generated by the Board of Selectmen.
Where is that?
Just in case.
Maybe I didn't get you a copy.
Maybe you did.
There's another one here.
Oh, okay. I got it. Thank you.
No, that's mine. This is his stuff over there, yeah.
Mine? I think I've done it, but I can.
Oh, this is that junk from
Okay.
something else.
Social media policies
Did you find one, Rick?
Yes.
Okay.
And you're going to sign mine?
Yep. I might have already done it, but I can't keep track. I know I did the conflict of
Yes.
interest one.
and Dan has as well. Also, if members who are going to be campaigning, make sure and get your papers into the town clerk as well.
We've been signing each other's petitions.
Anything else from anyone?
I just want to quickly read it.
Well, there are 3 planning board members that are campaigning.
You could give him the last page and take the rest home with you.
It's an unusual year.
Well, I think it's because 2 of them were unexpired terms, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Ed, put your name right there because you're a witness. You're witnessing my thing.
Dan.
Well, again, it's an
gotten his
expired term,
papers
yeah.
in to run, do you know?
He took them out and he's getting signatures. But.
Are you a Hamilton resident?
Okay.
No.
Okay, anything else? Are we good?
I even give you your pen back, Rick.
Yeah, thanks.
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Okay.
That was always unanimous.
Away we go.
Right. You.
Oh, yeah.
I got that second email that said our theological seminary.
Right, it was Gordon. It was, yeah, it was Gordon.
Well,
I don't know.
I put Gordon's.
It's going to cost.